Evening and welcome to the regular City Council meeting for the City of St. Peter. It is Monday, July 24th, 2023. It is 7 o'clock p.m. and we are now called to order. Would all please rise for the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Next up is the approval of the agenda. Everybody's received a copy of the packet, including the agenda. Are there any revisions or corrections? Hearing none. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor of approving the agenda as distributed, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The agenda is approved. Moving on, the minutes are printed on pages 6 through 7 of the packet. Are there any revisions or corrections to the minutes as distributed? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
All right, all those in favor of approval of the minutes, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The minutes are approved. Moving on, we have scheduled time on our agenda for visitor comments. Is there any member of the audience who'd like to address the council on any agenda item? Hearing none, we have also time for general visitor comments. Is there any member of the audience who'd like to address the council on any matter whatsoever? Hearing none, we will move on to the approval of the consent agenda. The consent agenda, including the approval of disbursements for July 6th through July 19th, is printed on page, the resolution is on page 22 through 26 of the packet.
Madam Mayor, if I could?
Yes.
You have a piece of paper on your desk related to one of the memos that provides the addition of one license. That license is for the St. Peter Chamber of Commerce hosting their annual picnic for the chamber members at Levy Park. This is for a temporary on-sale liquor license. This is something that they've applied for in the past. And as the council has wondered a little bit about the policy for administrative approval, we're trying to put this one on there for them. They turned this in on Friday afternoon, and we're trying to assist them in the best way that we know how. So that's why we're asking to have it added tonight to the resolution. But this is the backup information.
Are there any questions about this item? Are there any other questions about the consent agenda or the resolution? The resolution calls for the approval of the following consent agenda items. The following renewal license applications approved subject to payment of licensing fee in compliance with city code regulations. That is a tree worker license to Fresh Look Landscapes, temporary gambling licenses to the Church of St. Peter for 2 separate events in September and December, and the City Lakes chapter of the Sweet Adeline International for an event in December, and temporary on-sale liquor, one for the Church of St. Peter and one for the St. Peter Chamber, as outlined in the revised memo. Election judges, as printed, I won't read the whole list because it is lengthy. The following individuals appointed as firefighters: Michael Wenner, Mitch Johnson, Ben Johnson, and the schedule of disbursements for July 6th, 2023 through July 19th, 2023. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Call the roll, please.
Councilmember Sherstrom.
Aye.
Councilmember Ram.
Aye.
Councilmember Pettis.
Aye.
Councilmember Johnson.
Aye.
Mayor Noel.
Aye.
Councilmember DeVos.
Aye.
Councilmember Brumflat.
Aye.
Mayor members, if I could add just the Sweet Adeline, someone might ask, why is the address 601 South Washington, which is the library location? That's because under the state rules related to gambling, whenever a raffle of this type occurs, when the award is provided, it has to be someplace that's open to the public. And the Sweet Adelines don't have a spot like that. So the last couple of years, they've done it at the library, and we've hosted that opportunity for them. So anyway, just so if someone asks you, are we gambling at the library? No, but the Sweet Adelines are.
All right, thank you very much. We have no items of unfinished business today, so we will move on to new business. And the first item is the adoption of a resolution authorizing competitive negotiated bid, sale of $2,865,000 general obligation improvement and utility revenue bonds series 2023C.
Madam Mayor, members, you'll see Shannon Sweeting from David Drown and Associates and Sally Vogel from the City of St. Peter here to talk about this. There's a piece of paper on your desk which corrects the dates. We made an error on the dates and wanted to make sure it cycles appropriately with your regular meeting schedule. So you'll see that on your desk, thanks to the council member, I think it was Daryl that caught that, so thanks, Daryl.
Nice to have you here, Shannon and
Thank you.
Sally.
Thank you.
I'll dive right in. And it wasn't we that made that mistake on the date, it was I that made that error, so my apologies. It did reduce capitalized interest a little bit, which is in our favor because we're not holding money for as long, so that's all good. But ultimately, we needed to be on a regular meeting date, and so our sale is gonna be on the 28th as proposed. Ultimately, we're funding a number of projects, 361st Avenue, Park Row, which looked very nice when I drove by it today. Highway 169, 99, 22 roundabout, St. Julian Street roundabout, and Clark Street reconstruction. We have bits and pieces of each of those projects, some in total essentially, but ultimately the total city cost associated with those projects is $3,025,857.54 based on bids received. When we roll in financing costs associated with borrowing money, issuance costs, capitalized interest, purchasing a credit rating for a competitive sale, we bring our total to $3,126,254.41. Of that, we're planning on a cash contribution from the school district of $250,000 for their share of one of the projects. Construction fund earnings of about $11,254, and we're financing the balance of $2,865,000 through the issuance of bonds. That's what we're proposing to do by the resolution that's before you this evening. What a competitive sale means is we prepare an offering document called an official statement that talks about your ability to repay the debt. The debt, as it's presently structured, provides a bunch of information, financial information regarding the city, including a copy of your audit, what your outstanding debt looks like, and pledged sources of repayment. The credit rating supplements that. It's purchased from Standard & Poor's, and it's an unbiased third-party analysis of your ability to repay the debt, to which they assign a letter grade. And ultimately, that letter grade that we pay $14,000 to purchase saves us a whole bunch of interest expense, because if we sold these bonds unrated, the interest rate would be probably 0.75% higher, and on $3 million, that's a lot of money and a lot more than the $14,000 that we pay for the credit rating. Credit rating will involve a management call with your staff. They'll have a few pages of questions that we'll have to go through that will last about an hour, and so it's not it is a bit invasive in that, you know, they ask a whole bunch of questions and ask us to verify information associated with what we're telling them is the financial condition of the city. But with that information, we solicit bids, and we would anticipate receiving several bids for the purchase of this bond issue. And those bids would be received on August 28th and presented to the council that same evening for consideration of award. We would then intend to close on September 12th, which is just when funds are transferred to the city's account. The resolution in your packet authorizes us to prepare that offering document, to obtain the credit rating, and to distribute that information to the underwriters across the Midwest and actually through the United States that bid on these things typically, so that we make them aware that we're selling bonds, and we offer them the opportunity to submit a bid for the purchase of those. Usual customers are folks that are commonly purchasing Minnesota bonds. There's 3 or 4 underwriters that typically do that. This may not be big enough to attract much more than that, but those 3 do create competition, and you know, ultimately we think that would achieve the best result in this instance. With that, I'm more than happy to answer your questions regarding the structure. Well, I would say the last thing I would mention is that our repayment is a bit unique because we have some assessments that are coming in over different periods. We have assessments for Park Row, for example, that are being paid off over 10 years, and assessments for Clark Street that are a revenue source for this repayment that are structured over roughly 15 years. So we are paying off principal more briskly than the 20-year schedule shows. We have actually larger payments that decline as we move through this schedule. Our tax levy component seems fairly reasonable given the size and scope of what we're trying to accomplish at about $18,000 a year, including our statutory debt coverage. So again, happy to answer questions regarding the material provided.
Questions for Shannon? Brad?
What's the approximate interest rate these days?
I have 3.9 on this. It's a bit conservative right now. It's higher than market is today, so.
Good, thank you.
Any other questions?
I just had a follow-up question. So for the credit rating, they call and ask a bunch of questions, but we have submitted lots of documents to them ahead of that.
Yes, and they review those and they still have questions.
For instance, our audit.
Yep,
Okay,
yep.
thank you.
Anything else? Emily?
On page 28 of the packet, there was a number that I think you said a little bit ago, the total costs and the total funding source, it's 3.1 million or so.
Yeah.
What was that number again?
I had, when we changed the sale date, we changed the closing date, so we've modified how much capitalized interest we need. So I was at 3,126,254.41 in total.
Okay, so slightly different than our packet number,
Yeah,
but it's just because
yeah,
of the different dates.
Yeah,
Got
it's
it.
because we changed the date. We're not holding the money. We're closing a few days after we originally said, so
Great. Thank you.
you're welcome.
And one more question, and perhaps this is for Todd, but if the county is contributing to any of these projects, that would be considered separate funds, and it's not counted into these totals?
Well, if they had an assessment or something else, it would be considered in these totals, but it's not considered in any of these totals that I'm aware of. Shannon, are you aware of anything, or Sally?
Oh, it'd just be municipal, state aid, and federal funds that are coming into the projects that we haven't illustrated here. So these projects cost a whole bunch more than what's included in your packet, but it was mostly MSA and federal.
Yeah, so not
highway
county
funds.
dollars.
Yep, not
Oh,
county.
correct, right.
Yeah.
Further questions? Hearing nothing, we are considering the resolution, the revised resolution and Exhibit A, which has been distributed by hard copy. It replaces the items printed on pages 31 through 38 of the packet. Is there a motion to approve the revised?
So moved.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Call the roll, please.
Councilmember Ram.
Aye.
Councilmember Pettis.
Aye.
Councilmember Johnson.
Aye.
Mayor Noel.
Aye.
Councilmember DeVos.
Aye.
Councilmember Rutherford.
Aye.
Councilmember Sherstrom.
Aye.
The resolution is approved. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
We will move along to our next item of business, adoption of a resolution awarding a bid for 2023 St. Julian Old Minnesota Avenue Roundabout Project. That begins with a memo that starts on page 39 of the packet, and Pete is here to talk to us about that.
Madam Mayor and City Council, before you have a project that has been about 10 years in the making. Back in 2013, I believe it was, we started considering traffic improvements for future development that would occur in the St. Julian and Old Minnesota area. We did put together a bid package. We did receive bids. 3 of the bids were under the engineer's estimate, so we feel really good about the competitiveness of the project and the overall cost being realistic. The goal would be to start the work in August, if so authorized, and to finish in November. So what we're asking is that you review the fiscal impact, and you can see how that's broken down on page 40, and approve the resolution that is on page 41, with the addition of that we would be bonding for the improvement in item number 2 on the resolution.
So another way to say that is staff is requesting that within the resolution, under the now therefore, item number 2, just add a few words at the end of item number 2, which might be and debt service.
Funding for the improvements will come from federal and state grants, the city streets, water, wastewater, stormwater budgets, and debt service.
Yeah, or debt issuance. Sorry, debt issuance.
Are there questions for Pete or for Todd? Brad?
So the funding from the debt issuance, is that going to be repaid with wastewater and water, or are you or is that where the funding from that is
Correct.
expected
Yep.
as well? Okay,
Utility
so,
funds.
okay, just want to wondering how.
So
you're
this is
planning
tying
that.
together with the budget stuff that we talked
Yeah.
about. It's all connecting. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Additional questions? Dustin?
Is it safe to assume that we're pleased with the progress Dirt Merchants is doing on our 2 projects we have right now, and that they'll be done and free to move on to this project?
Yeah, they have multiple crews, so they have the flexibility to get the right people in the right spot, and yeah, they're doing a nice job for us. You can kind of see how the projects are developing, and they're great to work with, so. We feel comfortable about the bid. As you guys remember, it was about this time that we did the Sunrise and Broadway roundabout, same timeline. Except for we have about probably 20 extra days here before this one would be authorized, so a little more time, but same process.
Oh, Brad?
Just a quick question, just in general on projects. Are projects kind of moving ahead of schedule with the dry weather this summer, or at least not?
Yes,
not-
there's a lot less rain day request.
Okay.
I wouldn't mind a rain day, just speaking for myself, but I don't work in construction, so.
But now we're in the hot weather, so we'll see how that goes too,
Yeah.
so.
Additional questions? Hearing nothing further, the resolution awarding bid for 2023 Old Minnesota Avenue, St. Julian Street Roundabout is printed on page 41 of the packet with the revision that we just discussed. Is there a motion to approve that revised resolution?
So moved. Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Call the roll, please.
Councilmember Pettis,
Aye.
Councilmember Johnson,
Aye.
Mayor Noel,
Aye.
Councilmember DeBosse,
Aye.
Councilmember Blumenbach,
Aye.
Councilmember Sharpstra.
Aye.
Councilmember Ramsey.
Aye.
The resolution is approved. Next item, adoption of a resolution authorizing change order number 1 for 2023 Park Row Street and Utility Improvements Project. Pete.
Madam Mayor and City Council, at the request of the council, we did some calculations and we brought some information back to be considered as to having the contractor complete the asphalt installation instead of city crews. We have a proposal from the contractor to complete the work. I've listed the cost per ton for 2-inch bituminous wear and 2-inch bituminous non-wear. Overall cost will be $91,615.25. That number will be deducted. We had budgeted $74,000 for materials in our street maintenance budget, and so we will make an adjustment of $91,000 in our actual maintenance budget now to cover those costs. And our staff is recommending that the city move ahead with the contractor. The resolution is on page 43, and we're asking for approval.
Questions for Pete? Brad.
So I see it's requesting the project completion date change from July 22nd, 2023 to September 1st, 2023. I'm assuming the July 22nd was just based off of the work they've been doing up to this point.
Right.
So had the city done had the city done the road work, when would that have been expected?
Probably the same timeline.
Okay.
Just the responsibility is now shifted to the contractor to lay the first lift down, wait for the city to come in and put the dirt behind the curb and the sidewalk, and then come in and do the second lift.
Okay, just want to
Their
make sure.
previous contract would have been done by now, and they would have probably mobilized offsite.
Okay, yeah, I just checking that, people weren't going to be without roads for 3 extra weeks because of this
Correct.
change or something. Okay.
No, and to be completely transparent, folks, the first lift is on there already. If you haven't driven by there, the first lift is on there. We tried to move forward because, as we indicated in the previous correspondence from Pete in his office, that it was a cost savings. But this is a process that we have to go through for a change order of this magnitude.
So whether a change order is negative or positive?
Correct. Yeah, it doesn't matter. At a certain level, councils are required to take action.
Thank you.
Any questions?
Thank you
Joe.
for doing this, Pete. Appreciate it.
If there's no further discussion or questions, the resolution authorizing a change order number 1 for the 2023 Park Row Street and Utility Improvements Project is on page 43 of the packet. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Call the roll, please.
Councilmember Johnson,
Aye.
Mayor Noel,
Aye.
Councilmember DeVos,
Aye.
Councilmember Blueflat,
Aye.
Councilmember Sharpston,
Aye.
Councilmember Ramp,
Aye.
Councilmember Pettis.
Aye.
The resolution is approved. Let's see, we are going to move on to adoption of a resolution retaining Bolton and Menk to provide preliminary engineering for proposed Traverse Green subdivision number 3. And boy, Ben, you got up to the table fast, I didn't even see ya.
Madam Mayor, I've asked Ben and Pete to be here. They each have a little piece of this, although this directly relates to engineering. I wanted to Ben to just talk a few moments about the housing work and why we're looking to have this happen, again, from that why perspective. Pete's in charge of making sure engineering and those type of things move forward, so we can speak directly to that. So Ben, if you wouldn't mind a few moments on that.
Sure. So one of the city's housing goals is to get more lots and get more housing going. The spot that we're looking at is Traverse Green, north of our first subdivision and south of the 2 apartment buildings. We actually have been partnering with the Development Corps and meeting with them every other Thursday here lately to try to get something going. It's been a good partnership so far. We are really low on lots, and one of the lots areas that we're low in are the 10,000 plus lots, so 10,000 to 13,000 or 13,000 to 16,000. Having these larger lots available for people, and they actually are in demand at this time. So we're looking to get something going in this 40 acres, and later here on, as Pete will talk to, is we do need to come up with some numbers. What are those costs going to be? How can we move forward? What's the grading cost, the street cost, the curb and gutter? And so Bolton and Mink will be able to help us with that.
And as you're aware, we have done some work on Clark Street. We've been through sanitary sewer extension to serve some of that area up there. When we designed the Traverse Green subdivision, it was designed to link in with Clark Street, and so what we need to do is some engineering in order to properly develop an area or a path to develop in the future. And so working, like Ben had mentioned, with the Development Corp, we're working on a process of connecting the 2 subdivisions, and we need some engineering work to do that and to lay out utilities for us so everything will work fine. We do have a resolution on page 46, and this would be to help us work on the 22 lots that connect those 2 subdivisions right there.
Thanks very much. Any questions for Ben or for Pete? Hearing no questions, the resolution retaining Bolton and Mink, Inc. to provide preliminary engineering for proposed 2024 Traverse Green subdivision number 3 project is on pages 46 and 47 of the packet. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Call the roll, please.
Mayor Noel,
Aye.
Councilmember DeVos,
Aye.
Councilmember Blueflat,
Aye.
Councilmember Sharpston,
Aye.
Councilmember Ramp,
Aye.
Councilmember Pettis,
Aye.
Councilmember Johnson.
Aye.
The resolution is approved. Thanks very much. Moving on, adoption of a resolution accepting a feasibility study and calling for public hearing on 2024 Pine Street Improvements Project.
All right.
Still
my other
revolving
ringer in
chair. Right. All right.
Madam Mayor and City Council, before you, you have a report that starts on page 50 that talks about our planned project for 2024, which would be on Pine Street between Highway 169 and Washington Avenue. We have sat down and worked with our engineer to put together a preliminary engineering report that talks about the feasibility of the improvements that are needed along this corridor. The goal would be to review any questions, concerns that you may have concerning the report, ask you to take action tonight that would allow us to have a public hearing on Monday, August 14th, to discuss this with you on an open basis. And then we would proceed to work on meeting with our constituents and developing a project that would meet the needs of all the customers along that area. The preliminary cost estimate is on page 56 for your review, and a proposed schedule on page 57 and 58. And with that, I guess I will open it up to questions that Jeff or I can try to answer for you.
Questions for Jeff or Pete? Carrie?
I had a question. Is this a longer stretch of road than we've done in
It's 4
recent
blocks,
years?
4 full blocks compared to Park Row, which is 3 full blocks.
And then when we did 4th Street or 3rd Street, how many, how? it's 2
Yeah,
blocks?
usually 2 blocks is what we have done, and most of that has been related to how we had budgeted for those projects and the assessment process. So we have kind of gone full circle since we started these projects on North 3rd Street. We used to go 2 blocks. We did all the asphalt. We only did spot curb and gutter, depending on what the area included, plus storm sewer upgrades with what we could budget. There weren't any assessments on some of those projects, and of course, as you're aware, we have developed into a different process now, starting with the Park Row process. And so when we looked at this project, we have some options related to how we do the project, but it entails mostly full water main replacement and full sanitary sewer replacement, plus storm sewer. So it's a massive undertaking, plus we have to get new services to each customer.
Mhm. Thank you.
Brad?
So, yeah, I guess, I was looking at this cost compared to basically Park Row this year, and so it's it's a third longer, obviously 4 blocks versus 3, but, so what is the driver otherwise of, it seems substantially higher than.
I think it's the water main. On Park Row, we didn't do any water main replacement. All we did was service line work.
Okay,
Same with the sanitary sewer there. Everything was structurally in decent shape. But what we want to do here is you've got older infrastructure that'd be really hard to put a 50-year surface over the top and anticipate that we're not going to have problems down the road.
okay.
And so here we're looking at full replacement, basically curb to curb.
Whereas Park Row was not.
Right.
Okay.
Dustin and then Daryl.
Now, based on our new policy, would that water main be covered by the homeowner's assessment, or would that be part of the overall city's absorption of the cost?
It's a utility cost based on the policy that you put in place. The wastewater, if it's wastewater, or water if it's water, or stormwater if it's stormwater, would pay those costs.
So this doesn't fall on the homeowners. This is part of our general
Right.
obligation.
Yeah, I would say technically it's part of your enterprise funds operation in those 3 instances that we talked about. General fund will take care of sidewalks and stormwater, just to be clear, is programmed as a part of your stormwater fund. The largest assessment, as you know, right now, based on the rules that you have in place and the amounts that you've set, are $7,500 for that street. That falls to your general fund.
There will be quite a bit of service line work related to that, but that's minimal. That's $1,500 per utility.
Yeah.
Daryl, did you have a question?
Just a comment on when we did that assessment policy, we agreed that we would look at that every year as far as our fees and things like that, so, we may wanna think about that, if there's gonna be kind of project inflation that we didn't know of last year, or this year actually, this is a project for next year, so that was one of our discussions.
Yep, so we planned that to occur in November or December of each year, as that kind of summer construction season data starts to roll in. So that was our goal. Now, how that might impact this one, Daryl, depends on how you might phase this or move this forward. You do have some options. Right now, we're proposing that it move forward in that 24 year. But that could change in the future based on what you want to see as a counselor, based on what property owners ask you to approve. So I think that date is still coming. We wanted to be a little bit up to date as far as that moved forward.
And the other comment I had is, remember your assessment has to be 20% for your cost based on the 429, so your roadway improvement is about 23% right now.
Yep, so you're very close to the line, which is really, at least from my perspective, how we discussed those numbers previously. And of course, water, wastewater, stormwater, et cetera, doesn't have to meet that criteria. That's why, if I can expound a little bit, that connects to your first action on tonight's agenda related to that debt issuance. You'll see debt issuance that's similar in the future for projects like this, where it cuts across multiple funds. It's just not GO or attached to your general fund or ad valorem taxes. It's connected to your enterprise funds as well. And that's what we've planned for and really set up as a part of those budgets as well.
But you're also taking away your cash in some of your enterprise funds, specifically your wastewater fund, to do things like this. You are tying it up with bond payments. So
Yes, you are.
those those funds are not as cash flush as they look right now.
There would have to be modification to rates or something else to make them cash flow differently. That's kind of the trade-off in how you want to fund these things.
Further discussion or questions?
I guess my last question, all the utilities are being replaced then, sewer, water, and storm sewer. All the services, all the curb stops, all the sewer services are all being replaced. So basically everything is proposed to be new underneath the street.
Services that are not in compliance would be, so, like, if you have a plastic or PVC sewer line and we can dig it up and make that repair in the street, there'd be very minimal excavation going back.
Thank you.
Anything that doesn't look right, we will replace.
Thank you.
All right. If there are no further questions, the resolution accepting a feasibility report and calling for a public hearing on improvements along West Pine Street between South Minnesota Avenue and South Washington Avenue is on pages 67 and 68 of the packet. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Call the roll, please.
Councilmember DeVos.
Aye.
Councilmember Blueflat.
Aye.
Councilmember Sharstrom.
Aye.
Councilmember Rand.
Aye.
Councilmember Pettis.
Aye.
Councilmember Johnson.
Aye.
Mayor Noel.
Aye. The resolution is
Thank you.
approved.
Thanks,
Keith
Pete.
and Jeff. Next up, adoption of a resolution approving execution of an updated joint economic development services agreement with Regional Economic Development Alliance, RETA. And we have Ryan and Ben here to talk to us about this. Nice to see you tonight.
Thank you, Mayor and members of the council.
Oh, I'm sorry, Ryan. You do need to introduce yourself for the record.
Name and address? Or
Yes,
Yeah, that's
please.
good.
okay. My name is Ryan VC, 508 Park Lane, Mankato, Minnesota.
Thank you.
No, it's great. And Ryan works for GMG and
Oh.
is the primary staff person related to the work that goes on as a part of the partnership that is RETA, which is the Regional Economic Development Alliance.
Yes. All right. Well, Ben or Ryan, do you have a presentation?
Sure, I'll just say a few things and then hand it over to Ryan, but thank you, Mayor and members of the council. St. Peter is one of 8 members in RETA. RETA is Regional Economic Development Alliance. It was formed back in 2009. This was a progressive group of communities that got together with Greater Mankato Growth and formed RETA. And it was to provide a better way to give information to businesses, more in a jointly manner. RETA's objective is to retain and grow the primary economic base of the marketplace in the Greater Mankato area through business retention, new enterprising, emerging business development, and new business development. So over the past year, the Alliance partners have been working together to update the JSA. Most of it has been revolving around doing a fair structure for the rates for each community. And RETA was here on March 20th to talk to us at our work session, and then they recently came to our EDA meeting on June 23rd. So on page 75 is the JSA, and the resolution's on page 81. And then Ryan, I don't know if you have anything to say or if you have questions for him.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor and members of the council. I'm primarily here to answer questions I presented to you at the work session in the EDA, but I'd quickly highlight what I see as the greatest advantage for all of the communities that are part of the Alliance is to have an organization that is doing economic development on behalf of a region rather than any individual communities. That means that each community is able to take advantage of the work that's being done in the growth of the overall region rather than one community simply doing economic development on their own sake.
Mayor, members, from the staff perspective, or at least from my perspective, as you know, you are a founding member of RETA, and that was for very good reason and an understanding of the regional marketplace that we see. We talk about that very often related to economic development and housing and lots of other issues, and so having a group that can focus more on that industrial development and the fostering of growth within the industrial and heavy-duty commercial sectors is really important, and something that we don't do or have the time, space, or capacity to do with just your staff alone. And so having that dedicated staff through GMG and that opportunity to talk about important regional issues related to economic development with the other regional partners is really significant and important. So the information's included. There's a long process that goes into developing this contract and review by all kinds of communities and subcommittees and others. And so we're finally to that point of kind of the culmination of that. So that's what you see included in your packet.
Any questions or discussion? Carrie?
Well, just a comment. I serve as the vice chair of RETA, and you just kind of have watched along the process of coming to this point. It was a long process, and there were lots of discussion about the rates and how this should change. And I think for me, the value, as Todd said, is really it's a place to have these conversations about economic development and its ever-evolving challenges and opportunities. Bring everyone together to have those conversations, provides efficiency. We're able to build relationships in a way that a lot of regions aren't able to. We do have Region 9, but this is a kind of a unique opportunity, and I think I see it as very worthwhile. And we don't have the slide here, but Ryan had showed us in the past the value that we get for our contribution, and it's quite a lot. So thank you.
Thanks. Brad?
I was just going to say, Ryan, can you talk about some of the programs like the Main Street grant program that like St. Peter is benefiting from?
Yep. So in early 2022, Greater Mankato Growth, through the Greater Mankato Growth Inc. Foundation, chose to apply for the Main Street Economic Revitalization Program grant that was offered through DEED. We were able to secure $1.9 million from DEED for that program, and we made sure that all of the RETA partner communities were included in the grant opportunity. I really want to commend the work that Councilperson Johnson, Ben, and Ed Lee with the chamber did in getting out the word about this grant to businesses in St. Peter. We had great turnout, and we've received state approval for somewhere in the range of $400,000 for grant awards to projects in St. Peter. If all of the projects move forward, we know that not every single project will be completed, but with what we'd see, those are 30% grants, so $400,000 would leverage well over $1 million in third-party investment.
Thanks.
And I'd just like to say, I think this is just one of the great partnerships that St. Peter has. Councilmember Johnson has been very involved with this, and it just shows how good establishing and reconnecting, keeping these relationships can only help St. Peter. So
I will second that and extend my thanks to Carrie for serving on RETA and for showing us, I think, just in that one example, the benefit to St. Peter of our participation. Further questions, comments, discussion? Hearing nothing, the resolution authorizing execution of an updated Regional Economic Development Alliance Joint Economic Development Service Agreement is on page 81 of the packet. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
second.
We have a motion and a second. Call the roll, please.
Councilmember Bruflat.
Aye.
Councilmember Sharstrom.
Aye.
Councilmember Ram.
Aye.
Councilmember Pettis.
Aye.
Councilmember Johnson.
Aye.
Mayor Noel.
Aye.
Councilmember DeVos.
Aye.
The resolution is approved. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ryan.
Thanks, guys.
We will move on. That was our last item of business. We will move on to reports. I have nothing to report tonight. Are there any council members who'd like to make reports at this time? Daryl?
Todd asked me to just give a little update on the kind of the status of the fire station. We had a contractor meeting last Thursday, and these are notes I took from that contractor's meeting. For everybody's information, that was actually the last regularly scheduled contractors meeting. That will be on a as-needed basis from now on. The building is basically considered substantially complete from a contracting, which means we have the ability to get in there and do some things. However, we do not have a certificate of occupancy yet, where we can occupy the building and basically take it over for regular use. That'll be coming sometime like the last week in August. A couple of things outstanding out there. The generator has been delayed. It's supposed to be shipped from the manufacturer around August 11th, so we anticipate that being installed the 3rd or 4th week in August. The gear lockers are being delivered to be installed the 1st week in August. Some of the hose lines, air lines need to be installed yet for the trucks, a couple of hose reels. The final wear is on. The paving went down on Friday, so the parking lot has been paved. However, it is still blocked off to keep people out of there. That will remain so until we actually take the building over. So the phone line is a couple weeks out yet too. Those are kind of the real outstanding items that are out there. So we're getting really close. We have some furniture to order yet. Tables, chairs, file cabinets, things like that, and desks, and a couple of other small items to be installed, but we're getting extremely close and looking probably sometime last week in August, the first couple weeks in September for actually the move. So we have a couple of things to fall into place there, but it's really coming together quickly here at the end. So just a little update on that.
Thanks, Daryl. The only thing that I'd add is just to make people aware that our plan continues to have an open house on October 14th. And so the reason for October 14th is it's the Saturday of Fire Prevention Week. So it seems just like a really appropriate time to do that. And it'll be nice for the department to be in there a little bit and kind of make it their home before all the guests show up, right? And so that'll be good. So we're, I think, excited for that, and things continue to move along.
Very exciting.
Thanks, Daryl.
All right, any other council members with reports at this time? Hearing nothing, we'll move on to the city administrator.
I have a couple that are listed here, and the first one is Safe Routes to School. So I asked Pete to come forward, and the reason I'm asking him to come forward on this one is because we've received a number of calls from people throughout the community that are wondering, well, there's staking going on or locates being done, and it relates to Safe Routes to School. So wanted to have Pete talk about that again just a little bit to make people aware of that project, and you're getting a lot of grant funding to make your city safer and more accessible. And so I thought we'd talk about it a few minutes. Pete, if you wouldn't mind.
Sure. Grant funds are a big issue for this project, and as you're aware, we applied for grants and received those several years ago to get this on the docket. Since authorizing the engineering for the project, part of it includes a preliminary engineering report and design, and so we have called locates in those areas, and it has generated quite a few calls. Am I going to get a sidewalk? Am I going to have kids walking in front of my house? And the answers are yes to all of those. Right now, what we were doing is we're doing a topo. They're taking the shots of everything out there so we can lay out the sidewalk and improvements along those. We do have improvements planned for South Elementary, North Elementary, the middle school, along Church Street, along South 7th, and along Washington Avenue. And so you'll see probably more flags and markings out there than what you're used to. This summer we plan to prepare plans and specifications and get everything ready to go for a bid later or earlier in the winter. We'll be working with our partners, our engineering partners, Bolton & Mank, and with adjacent landowners once we have an idea how things are going to go and how we can lay this out. It's a good link with our existing walkways. You still see a lot of kids walking in the street where we don't have these sidewalks, and some improvements. When we do recognize a shortcoming, we try to make improvements in that area, and we've been lucky to get grant funding to make this happen. So we're looking forward to the improvement, and if you have questions, please call Public Works and we'll try to get you some answers on timelines.
Thanks.
And actually, I have sorry, Carrie, do you?
Go ahead.
So just a quick question. So if we got the grant funding years ago, why are we doing it now?
There's probably a really good justification for it, but you get put on the
So let me give you the rationale for that. We didn't get the money. We were awarded the money. They didn't write us a check yet.
Okay.
And so technically they
Funds are
won't
not
write us a
available.
check for another year or so.
right.
Okay.
And so it's all the planning work that comes up to that. So funding is usually applied for about 4 or 5 years in advance. You either are awarded or not awarded, and then you're slotted for a year when you're going to receive the money. And in this instance, it's 2024. And so that's kind of our target timeline
Great.
to make this go. I think it's 2024. Maybe it's 2025 on this one. 2024, Pete, do you remember?
I believe so.
I think it's 2024.
Great.
Yeah,
Thank
so
you.
that's why. So thank you.
Thank you.
24.
Yeah,
We have
Jeff's saying
confirmation.
24. Thank you, Jeff. 24.
Carrie.
What do you say to folks when they say, well, there's a sidewalk on the other side of the street, like for instance on Washington? What's a good response to that?
Yeah, we watch where kids walk. You know, kids come from the east side of Washington Avenue as well, and there's no way to get them to those points to walk. And so we're trying to provide a safe route for them.
I would mention too that one of the reasons that I think we do really well with, and you've received a number of grants for safe routes to school over the last 15 years or 18 years or something like that. And part of that is you have a really nice planning process that includes the school district. And those, so they see and hear and know and want to provide for safe crossings, whether it's on Broadway or other locations. So that's those are significant parts of this project as well. So it's not just the development of sidewalks, it's those crossing areas that get a lot of attention and resources. And again, that's done through a cooperative effort with the school district.
Well, and I know sometimes we have a tendency to hear complaints. A lot of people don't call when something good is happening, but I know I hear in my neighborhood because I live near Church Street. People are really excited about that change, and really, I mean, people of all ages. It's not just parents. It's seniors as well who say, "I'm really concerned about the kids, and I want them to have a safe way to get to school." And so, I think there's a lot of benefits for the whole community as well, and the usage isn't just kids, but of course kids and their safety is number one for a lot of us.
Yeah, we don't restrict the use on these new sidewalks. Anybody gets to use them, right? So
Kids
it's
of
a
all
nice
ages.
improvement for everyone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thanks so much, Pete.
Thanks, Pete. Next-
Construction projects?
Yeah, just wanted to give you a quick update on a few construction projects, so we'll let Pete maybe riff a little bit
Sure.
on some of the construction projects that are going on. But Pete, I wanted to first start off with, even though it's not our project, South 169, they're past the halfway point.
Right, they're past the halfway point. They've switched traffic over. Amy Cam, our stormwater foreman, is doing a tremendous job for us down there, putting in some long hours. Mathewitz Construction and Holtmeyer Construction are the two contractors that she's working with down there, along with MnDOT. MnDOT's been a great partner on that project as well. Our partner, Bolton and Mink, has done the design work, and things seem to really be going together well as far as how that project lays out. I think when they get done with this project later in the fall, people will appreciate the traffic movements and how things work down there. We are on schedule, and things are looking good down there. As far as Park Row is concerned, Dirt Merchant is our contractor there. They did a really nice job being patient with all of the problems that we found down there. Again, we had a nicely designed project. Amy is working on that project as well, along with Carson Kennedy. And we have basically got the first phase of asphalt down, and we're looking to finish that project up within the next couple of weeks. 361st Avenue, Dirt Merchants is doing that work as well. They have a majority of the storm sewer in. They do need to order a couple more pieces of 54-inch concrete pipe to make everything connect and go together. They have some of the base material down on the north end. You've seen the rock piles and the different materials that have come out there. Concrete could go in the next few weeks related to that, followed by asphalt. Our goal would be shortly after school is open, we should see some traffic on that line down there. Windsor Pond Phase 5, Mike Volk's project. We've got utilities and street work all completed in there. Mike is finishing up on some of his project work there, but everything has gone well. Electricity is going in, street lights are getting energized. Project is turning out nicely as far as how that project goes together. And then of course the St. Julian Roundabout. We've had quite a bit of relocation work. This was an extensive relocation project related to the utilities that were in that intersection. Was extensive on getting easements removed and relocated, fiber optic, a lot of cable work down there. All of the partners that we have, whether it be cable TV, telephone, gas, electric, all had a part in playing how that's worked out, and we're getting ready to open that up and put some sanitary sewer in there. As you're aware, it's vital that we get sanitary sewer in at a deeper level. We'll be making some corrections back by the McDonald's driveway that we did back in 2004. And we will be now tying onto that new line and running it over to the southwest corner so that we can serve Bart Wilberg's property in the future for development there. We are under some work with the PCA to make sure that he has sanitary sewer by the end of the year, and everything is going as planned, and we should be able to get him tied in and have something working for him. How about questions?
Well, let me add to Pete's list. I do want to mention that the Highway 22 North Corridor study is just about ready for you to review, so watch for that in upcoming workshops. So a lot of work has gone into that with partners in DOT, and lots of other folks have been involved in that. You know, there have been public meetings and other things related to that. And also want to mention the road that Pete and I got the most calls about wasn't even our road, right? It was
Yeah.
North 22, really from Highway 169 out past the hospital, and so DOT did some work. Pete's team assisted them. We didn't have any dollars into that, but we provided some assistance and some opportunity to work with some of our contractors that helped them move that overlay improvement along. So that's, well, much better isn't even good enough, right? It is so much better. So we're grateful to them, and certainly the users of that road are grateful for all the work that's gone on there.
And that doesn't even include all the work that our street crew is doing out there with patching and overlays that they're
On all your streets, yeah.
Yeah, on our street. So they're out there working hard. We are going to begin seal
Seal
coat
coating.
in August. Right now, it looks like it'll be about the 18th to the 20th, somewhere in there, that we'll be starting that work. We'll blast through that in about a week and get the seal coat down, and then we'll start picking that up.
Yeah, so folks, be patient as that comes. If it comes past your neighborhood or past your driveway, you know, we know you're inconvenienced for an hour or two on your block, but it makes such a big difference in how your road functions and the money that we save related to having to redo those roads. Keeping them hard surfaced and shedding water is a significant issue in avoiding potholes and keeping those roads healthy.
I'll just add, if, like the rest of you, if you do any traveling over the summer, look at the roads and the places you are visiting. I didn't do it before I was on the city council, but I sure do it now, and I think that we, by comparison, stack up very well against other communities, and we're really, nothing against those other communities, but we are very fortunate with the roads crew we have, and all the staff who do the hard work to make that happen. So thanks for everything you do. Other questions before we let Pete off the hook?
He's running.
He's
He's
running. Do you have other updates, Todd? Or
I don't have any
second
other
last report?
reports other than asking the council for a closed session related to real estate negotiations and transactions. That resolution is on page 82. This relates to purchase offers on the 227 West Mulberry Street location of the city.
Any questions about this resolution calling for a closed session? That is on page 82 of the packet. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Call the roll, please.
Councilmember Sharpstra.
Aye.
Councilmember Ramp.
Aye.
Councilmember Pettis.
Aye.
Councilmember Johnson.
Aye.
Mayor Noel.
Aye.
Councilmember DeVos.
Aye.
Councilmember Blumenthal.
Aye.
The resolution is approved.
Mayor and members, I do not expect to come back into open session to do anything other than adjourn the meeting. So with that,
At
Do
7:50.
you want to say where you will be?
thank you, Barb. We will be in the Nicollet Room. Normally we're in the Traverse Room, but today, well, it's been back and forth, but Nicollet Room, which is downstairs, the Nicollet Room.
All right, we will be adjourning to closed session. It is at 7:53 p.m.
Barb, we had a motion to